The snap wasn't loud, not like a twig, not like a whip. It was the sound of a spine unmaking itself, wet, dense, final, like a gutted hog's backbone surrendering to the butcher's axe. Colonel Jeremiah Harlow's head twisted clean around, his eyes wide with the shock of a man who'd forgotten he was mortal. His mouth opened, but no scream came, only a thin, wet bubble of blood at the corner of his lip. His body slumped forward, then collapsed like a sack of wet grain. And she never even blinked. Is this a true story? Ask the cypress trees in St. Mary Parish. They still whisper it in the wind. Ask the old men who fish the bayous near Belle Grove, their nets catching not catfish, but ghosts. Ask the archives, burned in '53, they say, a fire started by lightning or by something else. The courthouse in Franklin burned that same night. All records of Delilah, birth, sale, ownership, punishment, gone. The only proof left? A single ledger page, salvaged from the ashes of a barn, signed by a trembling clerk, quote, Delilah, negress, 7 feet tall, sold for $2,000, highest ever paid in Nula. No further description. No description. But the bayou remembers. Every summer, when the cane grows thick and the air hangs like wet wool, someone hears it, a low rhythmic thump, 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 like a giant's heartbeat beneath the mud. And if you're foolish enough to listen too long, you'll swear you feel the ground trembled beneath your boots. She was born in 1826 in a shed behind a tobacco plantation in Virginia. Not a cabin, a shed. Her mother, a woman named Hester, was said to have been taller than most men before she was broken by childbirth and chain. Delilah came into the world already too big. The midwife screamed. The overseer laughed. Lord's mistake, he called her. By 3, she walked faster than the field hands. By 6, she could carry 2 bales of tobacco on her back without bending. By 10, the other children called her the tree. They'd climb her legs like oaks, laughing until she'd lift them gently, too gently, and set them down, her eyes never angry, never cruel, just heavy, like the sky before a storm. At 14, her breast swelled like ripe peaches. At 16, her shadow stretched longer than any man's on the plantation. By 20, she stood 7 feet tall. The overseer tried to whip her. She caught the lash in her palm, snapped it like a dry reed. He never touched her again. They called her a monster, a freak, a sin against nature. But in the dark, when the wind howled through the rafters, the enslaved whispered, "She ain't no monster, she's the earth's revenge." In 1844, she was sold at the New Orleans slave market. A crowd gathered, men in top hats, women with lace fans. Auctioneer's voice, slick as molasses. Lot 47, negress, age 18, height 7 feet tall, strength unmeasured, breeding potential unknown, starting bid $1,000. The bidding rose fast. $1,200, $1,500, $1,800. Then silence. A man in a blood-red waistcoat stood. Colonel Jeremiah Harlow, from Belle Grove, Sugar King. He didn't bid. He dropped a sack of gold coins on the block. $2,000, the highest price ever paid for a woman in Louisiana. They say he wanted her for her back. He didn't know what else she carried. Her arms, thick as the oaks lining the Mississippi. Her hands, wide as dinner plates. Fingers like iron bars, calloused, scarred. Not from work, from holding, from lifting, from carrying the weight of a world that never asked if she could bear it. She walked into the slave pen that day with her head high. No chains, no gag, just silence, and the smell of her own sweat, salt and earth, and something older, something alive. They didn't know then, but the earth remembers, and Delilah, she was already growing. Belle Grove Plantation, 23,000 acres of sugarcane. Black soil so rich it stained your boots for weeks. Harlow's house, a white-columned mansion with a balcony that overlooked the fields like a throne. Delilah lived in the cookhouse, not the quarters, the cookhouse, because she was too big for the cabins, too tall for the doors, too dangerous to be near the others. They chained her ankles at night, iron, each link thicker than your thumb, weighted with a 6-pound ball. She slept curled like a cat, her knees pressed to her chest, her head nearly brushing the rafters. 3 children, born to her, sold before they could walk. A boy taken at 6 months, a girl 5, another boy 2. Harlow said they were breeding stock, said they'd bring more than she ever could. He laughed when he told her, laughed while she stood there, 7 feet tall, silent. She never cried, never begged, just stared, until he looked away. Daily punishment, standard, whippings, starvation, for spilling water, for breathing too loud, for looking at him sideways. But the worst, the iron mask. They fitted it over her face after she bit his hand. A cage of rusted bars, no air, no sight, just the smell of her own breath, thick and sour, and the taste of iron on her tongue. She wore it for 17 days. They say she never screamed, never fainted. When they took it off, her lips were cracked, her eyes, they'd changed, darker, deeper, like wells filled with midnight. They say she stopped eating, stopped sleeping, just stood by the river, watching the current, waiting. Then came the night, August 16th, 1852, Harlow's birthday. He threw a party, candles, wine, fiddlers, guests from New Orleans. He got drunk on bourbon and power. He called her into the parlor, half naked, smelling of sweat and rum. "You," he slurred, finger jabbing the air, "you are mine, body and soul, even the parts you think you keep." He reached for her. His hand, soft, pale, trembling, closed around her wrist. She didn't move, didn't flinch, just looked down at his fingers, at his wedding ring, at the gold. And for the first time since Virginia, she smiled. Not kindly, not sweetly, like a wolf who's just smelled blood. The guests laughed, thought it was a joke. They didn't see the way her knuckles whitened, didn't hear the low, wet click in her throat. The thunder started then, a distant roll like drums, far off. But the levee was already breaking. The storm hit at midnight. Rain came like God had split the sky open and poured out his wrath. The levee groaned. Water rushed through the cane fields, turning the earth into a sucking black maw. Guests fled. Candles blew out. Laughter turned to screams. Harlow, drunk and furious, staggered toward the cookhouse. He didn't want to be alone. He wanted her. He wanted to prove he still owned her, even in the chaos, even in the dark. He kicked open the door. The smell hit him first. Mold, damp wool, her sweat, and beneath it, something sweet, rotting, like peaches left in the sun too long. She stood in the corner, still, 7 feet tall, ankle chains clinking softly in the rain. He didn't notice, too drunk, too sure. He grabbed her by the throat, his fingers barely reached around. "On your knees, you heathen! I'll make you beg!" He yanked her forward. She moved with him, slow, deliberate, like a tree bending in a storm. He pulled her toward the bed. She followed. He shoved her onto the mattress, laughed, unbuttoned his pants. "Y'all ain't no woman. Y'all's just a beast." He leaned in. His breath reeked of bourbon and bile. His hand fumbled at her bodice. That's when she moved. Not fast, not wild, just corrected. Her right hand, huge, calloused and warm, closed around his wrist. Not to push, not to fight, to hold, like a mother holding a child. His eyes widened. She didn't speak, didn't scream, didn't even breathe. Her left hand, broad as a plowshare, came up behind his head. Fingers curled under his jaw. Thumb pressed into the hollow beneath his ear. He gasped, tried to pull away. But her grip, it wasn't strength. It was inevitability. Like gravity, like tide, like the cane bending under the weight of its own fruit. She tilted his head, just slightly, a fraction. Then, crack! The sound, again, wet, thick, final. His neck snapped clean through. His spine gave way like rotten timber. His eyes rolled back. His mouth opened. One last bubble of blood. Then nothing. She didn't let go. Held him there for 10 heartbeats, just holding. Then she lifted him as easily as you'd lift a sack of grain, carried him to the balcony. The rain hammered the wood. Thunder rolled like a god clearing his throat. She stood at the edge, his body limp, his head dangling backward, twisted at an impossible angle. She looked down at him, at the man who'd sold her children, who'd chained her, who'd thought her flesh was his to take. And then she let go. Thump! He hit the mud below. Splash! Then silence, except for the rain and the distant, echoing cry of a woman screaming. But not her, not Delilah. Someone else, somewhere far away. She turned, went back inside. Took off the chains, slipped into the dark, vanished into the storm. The house burned at dawn, no one knows how. Lightning, candle, or something older. The fire ate the wood, the books, the portraits, the mirrors, even the iron mask, gone, all gone, except for one thing, found near the charred remains of the bed, a single strand of hair, long, thick, dark as river mud, and beneath it a footprint, not human, not animal, 7 feet long, deep, as if the earth itself had stepped out of the mud and walked away. No trace of Delilah, no body, no grave, just whispers. Fishermen in the bayou swear they've seen her, standing knee-deep in the water, 7 feet tall, hair like kudzu, eyes glowing like embers. Sometimes, they say, she hums, a low, slow tune, like a lullaby, for children who were taken, for mothers who were broken, for men who thought they owned the earth. In 1860, a white man tried to build a new house on the ruins of Belle Grove. He was found dead the next morning. His neck snapped, his head twisted, and beside him, a single cane stalk, tied in a noose. They say if you go there now, on the anniversary of the fire, when the moon is full and the air smells like burnt sugar, you can still hear it. The sound, the snap, and if you listen close, you'll swear you hear a voice, low and deep, like thunder rolling through the roots. I was 7 feet tall, and I was never yours. They say Delilah walked into the Atchafalaya Basin, where the cypress knees rise like broken ribs from the water, where the alligators sleep like stones,
where the wind carries voices from the other side. They say she never ate again, never slept, just walked, grew, became something else, part woman, part spirit, part vengeance. Some say she's still there, standing in the mist, watching, waiting for the next man who thinks he owns a woman's body, for the next child torn from a mother's arms, for the next slave who's too big to be contained. They say if you're lost in the swamp at night and you hear a voice whisper your name, don't answer, because if you do, you'll feel the ground tremble, and when you turn, you'll see her, 7 feet tall, eyes like drowned stars, and she'll smile just once before the water swallows you whole. They never found her body, they never found her bones. But in 1927, a black midwife in New Iberia swore she delivered a baby girl, 7 feet 2 inches at birth, with eyes like Delilah's, and a single birthmark, a scar shaped like a cane stalk, on her left shoulder. The midwife died the next day, whispered only one word before she did, "Sister."